Hey everybody, this is Jonathan Early, and what I'm going to be going over today is just giving you a quick introduction of what this course will entail. So you can see here I made a mind map, and there's quite a bit here. So obviously I'm not going to be able to go into detail about everything. My goal with this initial video is just to give you an idea of what to expect. I'm going to introduce myself a bit, and I'm going to give you all an opportunity to kind of vote on what topics interest you most, and that's what I'm going to provide you the most of. So let me just dive right in before it's getting too meta. Okay, so this class, we are going to, let me start just with my philosophy. So this in particular has caused a little bit of friction between me and other Ivy Tech staff members, teachers, because this whole field is very nebulous. And just before diving into my personal background, I've been building websites since the mid-90s, and I've used dozens of software, and I've run my own web design firm. So I think I know something about how websites are built. However, there are competing ideas in terms of what should be the focus of this class. And I've been teaching at Ivy Tech since 2009-ish, perhaps. So things have been changing a lot there as well. So that's why I want to start with philosophy. Now, Ivy Tech places a high emphasis and priority on Adobe, and I've been using Adobe since the 90s, so I agree, it's definitely an industry standard. Very important to know Adobe. And since COVID, or it may have been before then, Adobe has been allowing students and teachers to get free accounts just by going to the Adobe Creative Cloud site, and then when you sign up, choose, well, I won't get into all those details, but you can get Adobe for free legally. So Adobe is great. However, I have become, over the years, software agnostic. Okay, so I use, in my current situation, I use Android, I use iOS, I use Windows, I use Linux, I use Mac, obviously. And there have been a lot of browser-based solutions as well that run on JavaScript. So there's, and a lot of things are free out there. So that's why I'm not one to just say this is the ultimate software. But to appease others at Ivy Tech, use Adobe. It's great. I recommend it. I use it myself. So I'm going to be focusing on methods and strategy. This has also been a point of contention. A lot of feedback I got when planning this course, I mean the most recent iteration of this course, was that I focused too much on theory. However, I'm going to make this point. You can go on Fiverr or Upwork or any number of online freelancing websites and hire some kid in Pakistan for $5 an hour to design you a website. Okay, and I've hired plenty of people overseas. I mean, I've spent thousands of dollars hiring people from all over the world, like China, Ukraine, Kenya, Philippines, Thailand, all over Europe. So, and I've hired local people as well. So, however, if you go on the job boards and you seek how different professions are being paid or compensated for their skills, people who have a solid understanding of things like branding and user experience and have somewhat of an entrepreneurial mindset and can see the big picture of things, those people make a lot more money. They have a lot more creative freedom. And that's been the direction I've been going, because I have a hard time sticking with one specific subset of skills. I tend to be all over the place and tend to have more of a directorial role when it comes to things. And the more creative control you have, usually the better you're paid. So I'm not going to put a ton of time into doing these super technical tutorials, because what I've found also over the years is that there are literally hundreds of YouTube channels and sites like Skillshare and Masterclass, Udemy, tons of free learning things online, and it's doesn't really make sense for me to recreate those things when there's better versions out there. So I will refer to those as supplemental materials when needed. And if it's in demand, if enough people from class request it, I can make custom tutorials based on what specific things you all want to learn about. Okay, so that's my philosophy. Ask me any questions if you have them, but I'm going to be teaching you a combination of high-level theory, philosophy, and technical. But the intersection of that is what I think you all are going to college for. You're not going to college to get tutorials, because you can get those all for free online. You're going to college for the experience of working with an industry professional and getting specifically catered advice. So that's what I'm going to offer you. So what skills will you be learning? Now, as you can see in web design, there are a lot of aspects. I mean, web design is such a broad field that I can either give you like a buffet style, like shallow level of lots of things, or I can go deep into one specific thing, or I can go kind of deep into one thing and then shallow in other things. So I'm going to try to do my best to give you an overview of what all is out there, and then give you the introductory steps of how to get into that. And then I will teach you some meta learning skills, which are basically learning how to learn, or once you find the thing that you want to learn, what's the best way to go about doing it, and troubleshooting and seeking advice and things like that. So there is this new thing at the time of this recording of NoCode, which is, when I started designing websites, WYSIWYG was what this was called. It's basically stands for what you see is what you get. Basically visual web editors, but things have come very far since then. And there's a wide variety of options, so that if you do not like coding and you are a designer, you can still build websites that have really high fidelity functions. So I will be covering some of these, and like I mentioned, I'm software agnostic, but I'm here to kind of serve as a guide and a mentor and a consultant. So Wix is a software I've been using probably for about 8 years now. They've made a lot of changes. They are one of the only publicly traded web design companies. They're worth many billions of dollars, and they're based in Tel Aviv, Israel. And I did work for them for a couple of years when I was in New York. But their most recent software is called Editor X, and it is, I would say, a pretty advanced visual editor that also has Velo, which is a JavaScript engine which allows you to do even more advanced features and even build custom apps using code and JavaScript and HTML. And then there's ADI, which stands for Artificial Design Intelligence. So if you just do not have design in your blood and you hate making layouts, ADI is basically an artificial intelligence engine that will build a layout based on the content you provide it, and it will make all the consistent branding design decisions for you. So that might be a good one to start off with. Now, Adobe, they offer a few web design solutions. Spark is their web page builder. XD is used for building mobile app or desktop prototypes. Photoshop is the OG. Dreamweaver is what I used to use to build websites back in the day, but I would no longer say that that is the industry standard. There's many other options out there besides Dreamweaver, but if you're an Adobe loyalist, go for Dreamweaver. And then there's Illustrator, which is used for vector graphics. And Photoshop and Illustrator both have web components in them. You can export your assets for easier import into these other web programs. You can also do what's called slicing your websites, where it will kind of cut it up into a table, but that's kind of an antiquated method. There's a pretty cool site out there called ReadyMag. It's kind of more artsy. I think it's pretty easy to use, has lots of really cool responsive and animation features. I've used it a little bit. Check it out. If you like it, go for it. Now, WordPress, this is like one of the big dogs. They've been around for a while, and I don't know what the latest stat is, but a big percentage of all websites built are run on WordPress. Now, I've been using WordPress since the early 2000s, and I honestly do not like using it at all. I find it very, very frustrating, and for a number of reasons. And I've even built professional client websites with a team of developers and designers in WordPress, so I know what I'm talking about. And it's just, it is not user-friendly. Unless you start off learning WordPress, but it has many issues, so that's not my cup of tea. It might be yours. But they have two versions. There's the .org, where they will actually let you download the WordPress CMS and then upload it to your hosting. Then there's .com, where they just host everything. All right, Webflow. This is kind of an up-and-comer. It's very, it works similar to Dreamweaver, but it has a lot of cool features that Wix has, and it's browser-based, and I'm finding that high-end designers are using this because it is so advanced. The features it lets you do, you can make very, very cool-looking websites. Figma has become very, very popular very quickly. It is a browser-based, and they also have a downloadable version. Prototype builder, so it can actually deploy a prototype straight to your phone. You can test things out. It's very, very easy to use and very advanced, and it has a very cool plugin community. Bubble is another browser-based web development app that lets you build virtually any web app. So they literally have a section where they list popular apps such as Instagram or Duolingo or Facebook or whatever, and they say how to build that using our no-code software. So very, very cool. It's a little buggy. I haven't used it a ton, but I've seen it. I've had my students use it, and they've been able to build cool stuff with it. And then lastly, there's Shopify. This is very, very popular in terms of building your own e-commerce store. They have lots and lots of tools. I'm not super into e-commerce, so I don't use it a whole lot, but a lot of people use it and a lot of people swear by it, so that's a good one. All right, one of the things they added to this class that didn't used to be in here was social media. So there seems to be much more of an emphasis on social media now, which is great. It's a nice introduction to creating web content. So with regards to that, you all know how to use social media sites, so I'm not going to teach you a whole lot on that, but I'm going to teach you more of the marketing and business aspects of social media. And that includes finding out your target demographic, what they're interested in, how you can have more targeted messaging and branding. There's a documentary called The Social Dilemma, which talks about some of the darker, nefarious sides of social media and social media companies. There's The Social Organism, which was a book written by one of the foremost influential social media marketers, and he's also a microbiologist, and he does a lot of comparing of the behaviors of basically biomimicry of social media and how that compares with microbiology. We're going to learn about a thing called persona, which is basically designing a fake profile of a fake potential customer, using this as a guide for how you're going to present your marketing. I'll show you guys how to set up a blog and what blogs can be used for to improve your, I'm going to add one more thing, SEO. Search engine optimization, and then also I'll talk about automation, so how to get things posted automatically across multiple platforms without being tied to your desk. We'll get into e-commerce a little bit, and e-commerce is a very broad field, but what I'll show you specifically how to do in Wix is how you can sell either digital or physical items, how you can connect a payment account, and how you can actually sell your time, so like set up appointments and bill for those appointments. Of course, we need to cover some of the graphic design aspects such as branding, color theory, typography, composition, and pattern, which I'm sure you should all be familiar with, but I will be incorporating those into the class because those are essential. And here's another thing that's definitely growing and expanding and pays very, very well, and that is the field of user experience. Now, I've been incorporating user experience principles into my sites for over 10 years, but it wasn't really formally introduced to me until later, and now I teach advanced user experience full-time, and I really, really like this field. This is for people who like problem solving, are into ideation, who are more people persons, who like things like unboxing and like driving a new car for the first time and like that kind of stuff. That all has to do with UX. And again, it's a very, very broad field. It touches just about every industry, and you can use it for your personal life, like in terms of organization and stuff like that. So we'll be learning some concepts like flow map, sitemap, A/B testing, prototyping, user research, ideation, design thinking, and the 5 planes of UX. Now, this is not a UX class, so I will just brief on those. I will touch on those ever so briefly. Okay, so technically, how does the web work? So this was another point of friction between me and some other Ivy Tech people. They didn't want me to focus on any of this, but again, having been a web designer, you're going to run into some of these technical issues if you're building sites for actual paying customers and they have an issue and you need to fix it because they're paying you. So these are all things I've gotten into. Databases, we'll talk about that. Basically, a database is like a spreadsheet. It's any set of information that's stored on the web and can be updated by whoever has permission to update it. So I won't get into all those specifics. HTTP, SSL, hosting, and domain names. All those things you will run into if you ever decide to build a website for a client and things don't go 100% smoothly. So I'm not going to get into all the programs yet. And format schedule. So basically, I will be offering one Zoom call per week for anyone who wants live, tutoring or has questions they want to ask. And if you're not able to meet with me then, we can basically message back and forth through Canvas or any other software. All right, so I've been talking about my job for a little bit, so I'll just give you guys a really brief background, starting with K through 12. But this is relevant because this is a web design class. So I used the web for the very first time in 1995. I think it was actually at IUPUC when I was a kid. And then I built my first website in HTML in 1996. That was in 6th grade. And when I was in college, I just tested out of the web class. I studied 3D animation because I saw Toy Story when I was a kid, and I was like, I want to do that. I graduated top in my class with a degree in digital art and animation. And right after college, my first internship was at a game company called Double Fine, and they made a game featuring Jack Black called Brutal Legend that came out on the PS3. So I modeled a couple prominent characters there and some props. I did a bunch of freelancing where I would design logos, made videos, all sorts of stuff for people. I worked for a medical illustration company doing motion graphics and 3D. And then I eventually got a full-time job as a web designer back in Columbus, where I helped a newspaper transition from print to digital, right as print was just like going off the deep end and dying. And then eventually that's what happened. The company had to downsize to the point that they shut down our entire online division. And as a result, I started my own company with one of my best friends, and we ended up taking all the clients that were being serviced by that newspaper, and that helped kickstart our success. So I started my own company, and in Columbus, we became the preferred vendor for the city of Columbus. So we did a lot of different government projects. We built the library's website. We built the Chamber of Commerce website. We built the Cummins Marathon website. We did many projects for the Columbus Regional Hospital. We did some work for IUPUC, also for Ivy Tech. So also a lot of manufacturing companies in Columbus. I eventually moved to New York, but before I get to that, and now I'm in Texas. Let's talk about my teaching career. So I've been teaching college since 2007 for Ivy Tech. I used to teach in person, and then in 2015, I decided I want to live in New York City. So I started teaching remotely from that point forward. I've taught about 6 courses in the visual communications department. While I was in New York City, I started working with Wix. I would give lectures on things like design and branding and user experience. I started working for Wix's educational branch called Wix Ed. I offered tech support to customers who came into the Wix New York office. I was on the board of advisors for Wix, so I would talk with a lot of their lead product developers and give them feedback and advice about the tools they had, and every single suggestion I ever gave to Wix has been implemented, so that's kind of cool. And also when I moved to Texas, I became a regional ambassador where I gave more lectures on things like search engine optimization and building your own website and e-commerce and stuff like that. While I was in New York, I started an after-school program called Laserbird Academy. And I eventually, when I came to Texas, gave a sort of a TED Talk like speech at a co-working space called Geekdom, where I had a panel of local tech CEOs talk about the future of education. And during that talk, one of those CEOs said, hey, you ought to check out this school, the Center of Applied Science and Technology. They're actually doing exactly what you're talking about. So that led to my current job. We call that school CAST. And so some classes I've taught there for the last 4 years have been digital art, web design, mobile app development, advanced user experience practicum, which is sort of like the transition to the graduation job market, and game development. And I also work remotely with a company called Digital Influx, which is building an education, basically a gamified platform to teach kids and teens how to use or how to do user experience. And so I'm a user tester and a consultant for them. If you want to check out my stuff, you can go to jonathanearly.com. So that site is built in Wix. I am going to redo it in Editor X so it kind of reflects my more current skills. The site is about a year old at this point. And yeah, my current job situation is that I teach full-time as a high school teacher at CAST. I teach part-time remotely for Ivy Tech, and I have a variety of other side goals or side hustles. And my main goal as a teacher is to transition our educational system to the 21st century industry, which is not a factory-based top-down hierarchical structure, but more of a kind of free-form neural net type model where each individual worker has a lot more creative autonomy. So that was my introduction. I look forward to working with y'all. Thank you.